Hey guys, look, it's my first non-Transformers review. And it's not a Transformers review. It's the end of an era, and I'm actually kind of really sad about it. I mean, the joke couldn't go on forever. I couldn't keep finding stuff that was technically a surprise that it transforms. In just 2 years, this joke has finally come to a close as the 9K subscriber special. Thank you so very much, everyone. We might actually hit 10K by the end of the year. And if we do that, I can finally do the What's the Best Grimlock. Let's take this somber note down and get into one of the toy lines I've only ever slightly dipped my toes into. Let's look at some goddamn Godzilla. I don't collect Godzilla figures. These two are my first exposure to what figures from this franchise are like, and I have to ask, holy crap, is this what the Godzilla community is actually used to? These are trash! The $80 one is exactly as good as the $20 one, which is to say, depressingly not very good at all for 20 bucks. To be nice to these things, they do look good in a statue kind of way. Like, if you just want to have a static Godzilla to put on your shelf, then I honestly recommend the $20 King of the Monsters Godzilla. It looks like it came right off the screen. And bonus, it being black and white with gray highlights means that it getting dusty doesn't really change the look of it. If anything, it looks more accurate with a layer of dead human skin cells on top of it. However, the 2014 Mountain Dew Baja Blast Godzilla is a different story. It looks about as well sculpted as the other, though this time the seam lines are a lot less forgivable. The old Godzilla costume had joints like that so the actor could move around. But the 2014 Godzilla being all CGI meant that they could do away with that. So now it has all these gaps that the American version isn't known for. And unlike the other figure, a layer of dust on this thing does actually compromise the look. And let me tell you, cleaning this is pain. There are so many different facets on this guy, it's insane. And the more expensive one has real quality control problems. His tail will fall off in several places if you just set him down too hard. And I just have to ask, where's the extra 60 bucks I spent on this thing going? They're sculpted about equally well, they're made out of the same material, as these guys are made of masses of rubber. They have mostly the same number of joints, they are the same size, hell, the 1954 actually comes with an accessory, as opposed to the 2014 one, and they may be the same size, but that size is not all that impressive. Here's Spartan, I don't know, some guy, from one of the Halo games that I've never played that I apparently bought before it was supposed to come out. Should have done a review of this a long time ago because that would have been a scoop for me. And you can see how even though this was $18 when I bought it, so it's cheaper than the other two, it's actually taller, bigger if you don't count the tails, and better built with way more accessories than the two of these combined because only one of them came with an accessory. And this guy has more types of plastic, and this guy has more features, and this guy is better painted. Are they seriously trying to argue that this is 60 bucks worth of paint? Because I will spit in the designer's face if they try to pull that bullshit on me. Don't get me wrong, it looks fucking dope, the whole reason I bought it to begin with. But I kind of expected to get this in hand and have it be, in a physical sense, better than the $20 figure. And it's just not. These aren't even big. I mean, these are Godzilla figures, and most of my chug scale figures are actually about the same size as these guys. Modern chug scale is smaller because, you know, fuck us, unless we're talking about modern Voyager and bigger, at which point Transformers is remarkably bigger again. Let me point out that Commander-class Skyfire cost the same price as this one. Together, they are more expensive than that figure was. And I'm only realizing this now because I wanted to weigh them against Skyfire to see how they stack up in terms of, I guess what you could say is pound for pound value, and the King of the Monsters Godzilla is significantly heavier. The cheaper one is the by far heavier one. The versus King Kong Godzilla is 280 grams. Or maybe it's grains. I don't know weight measurements. But the black and white Godzilla was 377, almost 100 grams heavier, a little over a third. And together, these two add up to be 200 grams lighter than Skyfire. Together, you are getting less plastic at greater cost. I didn't quite realize we Transformers fans are spoiled, because it is astonishing to me just how little value is being put in here. There's paint, but there's not that much more paint than your typical Chug figure. If I'm being generous, it's like 2 figures worth of paint per Godzilla figure. There's sculpting, but it's not like it's harder to do than Transformers sculpting. It's all about the same when working from CAD files. In fact, it doesn't have to be as purposeful as with Transformers. You can basically do most of this with a brush. The materials are rubber, which in these quantities is fine. It's not going to lead to problems with durability for the most part, but it's not impressive. It's not adding anything. Honestly, attaching the tail to this guy for the first time was a massive bitch. I'm not used to stuff like this, so I didn't get a hairdryer. I just brute force fought it into place. And engineering here isn't even 1/10 the complexity of a Transformer. Basically, every Godzilla figure could be sitting on the same skeleton, and it would all be about the same. And you may be questioning why I'm so offended by the price when I gave a pass to Acid Rain, figures that are a lot smaller than this, and also not remarkably cheaper. Well, for one, the painting on those is more complex. The engineering, while being generic just like this, is also far more advanced. They actually come with accessories, and most importantly, they are made by a much smaller company with a much worse economy of scale, and far less reach. You can buy these Godzilla figures in Walmart. To get Acid Rain figures, you either need to go online or have a really cool comic book shop in your area. So yes, by scale, these are more expensive, but their costs are higher and their volume is lower. Acid Rain had to do this to make a profit. Bandai, on the other hand, is only doing this out of pure greed. And that's not to say that there's nothing to like here. I bought these because I thought they looked sick, and they do. I love the radiant paint on this one. I love the glowing mouth. I love the mean expression. It looks cool as shit. But when it costs 4 times more than the other one and comes with literally nothing, where the other one at least had a blast effect, you know they are taking the piss. Speaking of the blast effect, this thing is decent, but slightly disappointing. Not for lack of trying to give us quality, but on execution. It's in grayscale, as it's supposed to be from the black and white movie, and I 100% approve of that. I like it. It's also sculpted exceedingly well. This does look like a proper stream of fire. For a flamethrower more than the atomic breath that we're used to. I can't remember if this is ever what it looked like in The King of the Monsters, or if it was always just that misty looking stuff, but I appreciate the fact that this is probably an accessory that doesn't come with most other Godzillas. If I had to guess, it's unique to this figure. The problem with this is that it is an ever so slightly flexible material, and the port for it is kind of placed in the roof of his mouth. So not only does it droop when installed, but it's just angled down in general. And while I guess it's accurate to the movie, Godzilla was really just ruining our squishy little days, it still feels wrong to not have him really be capable of firing straight forward. It's a great, if simple and singular accessory. It just feels like it could have been more. But anyways, on to Posability, and this is honestly the reason I'm so pissed about these things. Because they make red figures look like priceless gifts from God. Opening mouth on both, the 50s Godzilla has 2 neck joints that allow him to get a reasonable amount down, but basically no up. The MonsterVerse Godzilla with way more joints can get his head straight up, but basically not that much further down. Incredibly restrictive arms that barely go anywhere on both, but MonsterVerse's ones are somehow like 3 times more restricted. Elbows that can't get straight and can only pull a 90 at best on the 50s Godzilla. Elbows that don't have the straightness problem and can bend more than 90 on the other one. Opening and closing hands with slight narcissa wrists and wrist swivels on the 54 boy. Wrists without opening and closing, but do have better narcissa wrists and swivel, though they do tend to pop off a lot. Both have terrible waist joints that you have to fight to move and barely work at all as ab crunches. Legs that can barely move on the black and white Godzilla, and on the other one, legs that can move forward okay if you're good with them going off at an angle. And they got a little more out to the side. Knees that bend like 30 on the OG, knees that bend like 30 on the new guy. Feet that are technically articulated up on the classic figure, but in practice not at all, basically only rotating. Feet that have a tiny amount of toe down, and a tiny amount of toe up, and a tiny amount of a rocker, and have limited but fully reasonable swivel. And then both have tails with multiple sections, though the $80 figure's tail loves to fall apart. And this is really the crux of the matter, isn't it? These suck at posing. Sure, I didn't cover every last joint these have, and they do have some specialty joints that other figures just don't possess, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that their fundamentally most basic joints tend to kind of really blow chunks. The $80 figure absolutely has the better posing of the two, no question, but it's not that much better. I mean, this is like the difference between a 3 out of 10 and a 3.5 out of 10. They have just enough that you can kind of do some stuff, but most of what you are doing isn't going to be complex at all, and you have to cheat the joints just to get anything out of what should just be there to begin with. And my ultimate conclusion for these two is that I am flabbergasted that the Godzilla toys get away with being this bad. Hell, I see these things getting lauded by people, but I legitimately can't understand why. Unless the person doing the reviewing has absolutely no exposure to other toy lines, these are a horrific ripoff. Well, one is. The other one is okay. Tolerable for $20. It's basically a statue with more display options than anything cast as one piece. But that's really what it is. A statue, not a toy. It's not fun. The more expensive one is too flimsy to hold together if you're handling it any more roughly than kid gloves. The joints don't move freely enough that it's easy to get them to throw a punch or anything like that. And the spikes on the back really hurt your hands if you grab this thing wrong. Figure's a goddamn cactus. Look, for $20, I can actually recommend these to someone, if they are literally just in the market for some kind of static object for display. If you want to play with these, neither is worth it. But Baja Blast Godzilla is especially not worth it in any regard. Take your $80 and shove it, Bandai. Feels weird to not blame Hasbro. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.